The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome to another GoldMine 101, our regular series, probably weekly now during this lockdown period. Weekly presentations giving you hints and tips for getting the most out of GoldMine CRM. And this morning, I'm going to cover filtering basics, basic ways of creating lists in your GoldMine system. Hello, my name is Tim Wilmot and my company Wizard Systems. We're a specialist CRM system supplier who helps small and mid-sized organizations improve their sales productivity, marketing, and customer service through the use of simple and affordable software solutions like GoldMine. This presentation will only be about 10 minutes or so in duration, maybe a little bit longer. Just an overview of filtering, not meant to be in-depth training. My company, Wizard Systems, offer many extensive training options. If you'd like to explore that with us, we'd be happy to have a chat with you. The audio part of this presentation is one way only, as you were informed when you joined the event. If you've got any questions, please type those into the question box on your meeting control panel, and I'll do my best to answer those at the end. Also, at the end, I'll give you a quick update on any GoldMine product news, just in case you're not familiar with what's happening on the GoldMine scene as regards versions and roadmaps and the like. This call is being recorded as well. After the presentation, you will get a link to the recording by email from our system, and we'll probably post it on our YouTube channel as well. Okay, quick mention about Wizard Systems. First of all, I know many of you on the call listening live are very familiar with Wizard Systems. So we are a long-standing GoldMine supplier. We've been doing this a long time. We've got well over 3,000 installations of GoldMine in the UK and further afield. And we offer any kind of service you want around the GoldMine package. So please call us if you want any help, training, assistance, particularly during these times. We're only here to help you and assist you get the most out of your GoldMine investment. Okay, let's dive into filtering basics then. So, GoldMine. I guess you're all pretty familiar with the quick searching for records in GoldMine. You double click on a field label. So if I wanted to find everyone in the building sector in my GoldMine database, I could double click on the industry field label here, and that would instantly bring up my contact search center window. And yes, of course, there's all of my building contacts in the database. Of course, you can decide what columns you see in this summary view. Notice what the search condition is here at the top of this window. Of course, I selected the industry field. The operator, this is called the operator here, it will default to begins with. So as I type in the first few letters of my initial search criteria, it's very fast. It is finding the records that match that condition. The more information I type in, the smaller the search results will be, because we're narrowing down that search. But I can change that operator there quite extensively. So I could have put in equal to. That has to be an exact match. So ignoring whether it's lowercase or uppercase, I've got to type that in pretty accurately. And this is why it's important to make sure when we enter records into GoldMine, we put them in as accurately as we can. Use the F2 lookup window when you're selecting some kind of category or a job title or market sector listing. Use the F2 lookup listener field. It's going to make sure that we all enter in data into our GoldMine database in a consistent format so that we can then find the records quickly and accurately for you. So we've got lots of different operators there, not equal to, greater than. and so on. Even we've even got is empty. If you wanted to build a list of all of your contacts that don't have a value in that field, maybe you're doing some kind of data cleanup exercise, that would be quite useful as well. Now, over on the right-hand side, there's a plus button. This is where we can now add in, I've just clicked it twice there, but we can now add in additional search criteria. We're narrowing down the search. Maybe I want to look at someone's job title. So I've got a job title field here, and as I type in an entry there, it will narrow down the search. I will see less and less records being returned by the system. Let me just remove those a little bit. Now, these filters, why are we doing these filters in the first place? Well, it's a great way of creating lists. We all work on lists, and I know many GoldMine customers of ours, they manage their activities based on lists. They may not necessarily use the activity list to manage their working day, particularly if you're in telemarketing, telesales. You may have imported, uploaded a list of data. You may have mailed those people. You may then work from a list. You're putting in the criteria, as I'm doing here. You're building the search criteria. And when you log into GoldMine, you're looking at that list. You're sharing that list with your colleagues, and you work through that list in some kind of sequence. There is a sort order to these lists that we create. We can click on any of these columns to sort this list in ascending or descending order. So important for building lists for some kind of function. Also, filters are very useful when we come on to reporting or dashboards. We can then report on our GoldMine database, but narrow down the report based on a filter condition. Marketing. Hopefully, we're doing lots of marketing right now. We're sending out lots of messages to our customers. Well, lists are very important to be the cornerstone of your subscriber list, whatever mailing package you're using in conjunction with GoldMine. Could be Constant Contact, MailChimp, IntelliClick, Gator Mail. We supply them all. We link to them all. Lists are very important in managing marketing campaigns, and also admin functions. So if the administrator of the GoldMine system wants to change something about a group of records, or reallocate them to another user, or copy them to another database, then these filter conditions are incorporated in a lot of these admin functions in GoldMine. So that's the basics of building that filter or building that list. If we want to save that now as a permanent list in our GoldMine system, we would save it as a filter. So we give the filter name something recognizable, builders, for example. Now, these lists are stored by default under your username. We can, depending on the user security access levels set up in GoldMine, we can use each other's filters. We can pinch, we can clone, we can copy filters for other users as well. So a great way of sharing this information. Now, where do you see these filters that you've saved? Well, they will be visible on the Tools menu and Filters. I can click on Filters there, and there's all of my existing filters. I'll just close that down. Go back to my Contact Search Center. Just to the left of the Contact Search Center, there's a little gripper bar. Notice my cursor changes to a hand icon. I can now drag or double click on that gripper bar line, and this will expose all of the filters for me in an alphabetical order. Right at the top of that list is a little line there, which is just confirming what I've said. We're looking at the filters of a username master. I could click on that though, and I can then view the filters of another user in my team. Okay, so a very quick way of looking at your filters, seeing filters from other users there in an alphabetical order. Where you see your filters, use the right-hand mouse button in GoldMine. The right-hand mouse button is used a lot in the GoldMine system. So I can click on a filter and I can right-click over that, and a little pop-up window is displayed, giving me further options on my selection. So I could preview it. I could activate it to use it. So activating and releasing filters. Activating a filter means that as I start scrolling through my database, the page down key, using the arrow keys, I'm only going to be going within that filter. So if you've got thousands of records in your GoldMine system and you just want to be scrolling through a few of them, then you can activate the filter. So this activate function is used in a lot of areas in the GoldMine system. So that's what the activate means. And then you release it when you're finished with it and you want to go off and do something else. If I just quickly go to edit, you can edit saved filters. This is what they look like. So you've got the filter name here. We've got the owner. We may have a filter expression, which could be displayed in English if you haven't tampered with it. There is also, just for those a little bit technical on the call, there's a reciprocal SQL query syntax. If you're brave, you can click on the edit expression button, and if you've got some basic knowledge of SQL, the query language and the syntax, the rules of the SQL query language, you can now, in that white box, start typing away and amending that filter if you want to. There is the dbase expression. This kind of goes back to, well, a long time ago when dbase was the database. Some of you that have used GoldMine maybe more than 15, 20 years, this will be familiar to you, before we moved on to the more up-to-date Microsoft SQL system. So yeah, you can see your expression in a couple of formats there. Probably safest to use SQL because all of the data in GoldMine is in an SQL database. So it just makes sense that you're using the SQL query language, the SQL query syntax to try and get that. Build is allowing you to again go on and build the expression if you want to add on additional search criteria. And the final thing I wanted to say about these filters, well, actually, there's a couple of things. First of all, optimization. If you've got a lot of records in your filter and you want to, as you press page down, as you go through the records from one to the next in a certain sequence, you want to define what sequence you're going through. Well, you could define that there. If you wanted to go through in company name order or surname order or country order, you can define those there. Plus, we can define a limit, a further limit on top of the filter condition. So yeah, the filter is just saying, oh, give me all of the records where industry sector equals builder, but I want to go through all of the companies in maybe separate chunks. So I could have selected maybe company name begins with, well, In the first example, it may be blank, but then the ending limit might be N. So I will now be going through my database in alphabetical order, starting with records that maybe have no company name, their value is null, their value is 0, and then ending, I will stop when companies begin with the letter N. The next phase would be maybe companies starting, the beginning limit would be N, and then ending limit might be Z. So that just gives you a basic idea on how you can further limit larger filters and work with them in more manageable chunks. One final thing about filters, they're referred to as being dynamic lists. I say dynamic because if you or anyone adds in another contact record into the system, it will automatically be added to that list. When you use that filter, when you use that filtered list, it's going to use that new contact. All right, so you don't need to worry about, oh, will this new record be in that filter? Yes, it will. Whenever we use the filter, whenever we activate the filter, it will interrogate the GoldMine system and find those newly created records, or maybe newly amended records where the filter condition is true. They're going to be visible in that filter search. So there's a quick rundown then on filters, working primarily on the top half of your screen and on the Fields tab and the Notes tab. So yeah, there are certain things that you can't use filters for, but primarily it's contact data. Now this is the first in a number of regular training sessions that we're going to be doing on GoldMine. Next week and the week after, we'll be doing similar sessions on groups, pretty similar to filters, but subtly different, and SQL queries. That really is a very powerful feature of GoldMine that you don't find in many other CRM systems, but it's a way of finding literally any information in your GoldMine system using the SQL query builder in GoldMine. All right, so 2 follow-up sessions, free training sessions for the GoldMine community coming up on related topics, GoldMine groups, and GoldMine SQL queries. So, as we normally do, those of you that are familiar to the format, you're now able to please ask me any questions. And I did get a question sent to me by email, someone that's not in our time zone. So if you do have a question for future sessions and you're not able to attend live, please email me, tim@wizard-systems.com. I'd be happy to read out your question on the next session, give you the answer, and you're going to get a recording of the whole session anyway. So first question from Haley. There are certain fields we can pull into GoldMine through SQL query, what I've been talking about already, that we cannot pull through our regular built filters. Is it true that when we go to build a new filter from the Filters and Groups tab, and that if we click on SQL query at the bottom and edit expression and paste an SQL query there, it will build a filter based on that query? Well, in the way that you describe it, yes, it will. If it's still visible in the filter list, then your method of doing that, yes, it will create that filter. We need to be a little bit careful with our terminology because some filters do have some limitations. They're only going to be working on contact data. So if your SQL query I mentioned SQL queries are allowing you to really search on any area of the GoldMine system combination. You see, when we're looking at GoldMine records, we're actually looking at separate little tables in the background. There are separate little tables where all this data resides. And an SQL query can be used to build up an interrogation of each of these little pockets of data. So you may get an error if you've created the SQL query somewhere else, but in the way you describe, Haley, yes, that will be, if I understand you correctly, that will be a filter. Next question from, looks like Nula. Can I edit a filter or do I need to recreate it? So a little bit similar to the last one. You can edit the filter, as I explained, by clicking on that. When you see the filter and you edit the expression, you edit the filter, you will be able to see the ability to build on it, add extra things to it, or click on the debase, show the debased expression, or show the SQL query. So you can edit that way. It's not 100% guaranteed if you do that, depending on how complex your filter is, Nuala. Normally, I would say 9 times out of 10, no problem at all. But if you've got quite a complex filter that may have been created by somebody else that does something quite complex, just be careful. It might be easier to clone the filter and then work on a copy of it rather than amend the filter that you're editing, if you see what I mean. Right, don't think there's any more questions coming through. So just to keep everyone in the loop with latest GoldMine news. So we are going to be doing these weekly training sessions on GoldMine. Please, if you're watching this on YouTube, please go up to our website or email us, tim@wizard-systems.com if you want to be included on future invites for that. To make the registration a little bit easier for you. And if you want a more in-depth company or individual training course on any topics that are discussed by ourselves, go into this in a lot more detail and a lot more, make it a little bit more interactive. We can do online training at a date and time to suit you as well. They can be a half-hour duration, an hour duration, 2 hours, whatever. Latest release of GoldMine, 2019.1. We've got 2020 due out in May. More information on that later on. Probably include it in one of our GoldMine 101 sections here. So stay tuned for that. Going to have lots of improvements on email and compatibility with the latest Google and Microsoft email security capabilities. So how do you get updates on GoldMine? Make sure you've got a maintenance contract on GoldMine. Please contact Wizard Systems for more information. So please email us if you've got any suggestions for future topics. As I say, the next ones coming up will be on GoldMine groups, and then after that, GoldMine SQL queries. There's loads of things we can talk about with GoldMine just to help you get more out of it on a day-to-day basis. If you've got any ideas about topics, particularly during this lockdown period, so if you are listening to recording this, this is April 2020, and the UK is in a sort of lockdown situation, so we have limited mobility for a number of us. If there's anything relevant to help you with your management of customers, marketing, customer service, please let us know. And if you've got any questions that you want me to read out for future sessions, then please do that. There's our other contact details. My name again is Tim Wilmot, company is Wizard Systems. Other ways of connecting with us. But thanks very much. Those of you that are listening live, catch up with you next week where we'll be talking about GoldMine groups. Thanks very much indeed. Have a nice day.